My child, if what exhausts you most is not what has already happened, but the way your mind always imagines the worst, then please do not leave just yet. If one moment of silence is enough to make you think something must be wrong, if one delayed reply is enough to make your heart race toward the worst possible ending, if one small sign is enough to make your mind build an entire storm, then this message is for you. Because I know there are people who are not living inside what is actually happening. They are living inside what they fear will happen. And that kind of living wears them down far more than others realize. My child, I know that feeling. The feeling that your mind refuses to stay with what is actually in front of you, but always runs toward the darkest possibility. Someone becomes a little quieter than usual, and you think they must be pulling away. A small ache in your body, and you think something serious must be wrong. A result has not come yet, and you think you must be about to fail. A conversation has not happened yet, and you think it will surely fall apart. One difficult day comes, and you think everything must be heading in the wrong direction. Many times, you do not even want to think this way. You are tired of being this way. But your mind keeps moving automatically toward the darkest, worst, most painful conclusion. And my child, I know this is not simply thinking too much. It is a very deep kind of exhaustion. There are people around you who do not understand. They think you are just negative. They think you are too sensitive. They think you are overreacting. But only you know how tired you truly are inside. Because each day, you are not only living with reality, you are also living with dozens of frightening possibilities your mind creates on its own. You are not only doing your work, you are also fighting thoughts that keep pulling you downward. You are not only moving through life, you are also moving through the frightening stories your own mind keeps telling you. And that is truly exhausting. I know there are nights when what fills your mind is not rest, but the worst scenes imaginable. You think about illness, loss, separation, failure, being left behind, being replaced, being misunderstood, falling behind. Sometimes nothing has actually happened, and yet you feel as drained as if you had already gone through something very painful. Your heart beats faster. Your chest feels heavy. Your body feels restless. Your eyes are tired, but sleep does not come. And then you blame yourself again. Why do I always think of the worst first? But my child, do not rush to punish yourself with that question. I am not coming tonight to condemn you. I am coming to help you understand what is happening inside your heart. Many times, a mind that always imagines the worst is not a bad mind. It is a mind that has lived too long in alert mode. Perhaps you have been through things that shook you too deeply. Perhaps you trusted and were hurt. Perhaps you once believed everything was fine, and then, in a short time, everything changed. Perhaps you once walked into something unprepared and still had to carry a great deal of pain. And from that point on, something formed inside you. If I prepare for the worst ahead of time, maybe it will hurt less when it comes. If I anticipate everything, maybe I will never be caught off guard again. If I lean toward the worst possibility first, at least I will not be too disappointed. Do you see it? What is happening is not that you want to suffer. What is happening is that your mind is trying to protect you in a clumsy way. It thinks that constant alertness is safety. It thinks that imagining the worst ahead of time will spare you from pain. It thinks that preparing for the worst will keep you from being crushed by disappointment. But my child, a mind that lives in protection mode for too long forgets how to rest. And in the end, the very thing trying to protect you becomes the thing wearing you out the most. You are not only thinking too much, you have been living in survival mode for too long. That is why one small signal can make your whole heart tighten. That is why your mind always takes the shortest road to the darkest ending. That is why even on days when nothing terrible is happening, your body remains tense, your heart stays guarded, and your soul does not know how to rest. What is exhausting you is not only fear itself. What is exhausting you is that your mind has not truly given your heart permission to lay itself down. I know there are days when you cannot even enjoy something good completely, because even while something kind is happening, part of you is already afraid of losing it. When someone treats you with kindness, your heart does not have time to warm before your mind asks, will they change? When a good opportunity appears, you do not have time to be grateful before your mind asks, what if I ruin it? When a new connection begins, you do not have time to feel hope before fear of being hurt rises up. So many times you are not truly living inside joy. You touch it briefly, then step back, as if your heart is afraid to believe something good will stay long enough for you to rest in it. That is a very quiet kind of pain, because from the outside, people may think you are simply living a normal life, while inside you are almost never at rest. When your mind keeps imagining the worst, life becomes one long chain of tension. It is not that something terrible is always happening, and yet you live with the feeling that something terrible is about to happen. It is not that someone is always hurting you, and yet you live as though you must remain on guard to keep yourself from being hurt. It is not that there is always a clear sign of danger, but one small shift is enough to wake fear up inside you. My child, I need you to hear this clearly. Not every thought in your mind is the truth. Just because your mind tells a frightening story does not mean it will happen. Just because you feel afraid does not mean reality is truly as dangerous as it seems. Just because your heart sounds the alarm does not mean the situation before you is a disaster. Sometimes the loudest voice in your mind is not truth. It is fear. It is old memory. It is an unhealed wound. It is a nervous system so accustomed to tension that it sees everything through the lens of self-protection. I know when you hear that, you may say, but what if something bad really does happen? Yes, there are hard things in life that are real. I am not asking you to pretend life holds no sorrow, no loss, no uncertainty. I am not asking you to become naive. I am not asking you to live carelessly. I am simply telling you that hurting yourself 100 times in advance over something that may never happen does not make you safer. It only makes you more exhausted. It only steals the peace of today. It only leaves you weaker if one day you truly do have to face something difficult. My child, there are people who are spending all of today's strength suffering through things that have not yet come. They are not only concerned about the present, they are already hurting in advance for the future. They sit inside an ordinary day, but their heart feels as though it is trapped inside a storm. They look at one small sign and immediately jump to the largest conclusion. They do not pause at the simple possibility. They run straight toward the worst one. And because of that, they grow tired. Very tired. So tired that they no longer trust peace. So tired that even when nothing is actually wrong, they still do not feel safe. Perhaps that is you too. Perhaps you have become too used to preparing for the worst, just in case. Perhaps you have become too familiar with saying, it is better to think ahead than to be caught off guard. Perhaps you have grown used to leaning toward the negative possibility first, in order to protect yourself. But my child, if your whole life leans toward the worst, then even good things will have no room to breathe inside you. You will stop hoping, stop rejoicing, stop trusting, stop resting. And then fear will no longer simply try to protect you. It will begin to rule you. I do not want fear to rule you. I do not want the darkest thought in your mind to become the strongest voice in your life. I do not want a worst-case scenario that has not even happened to steal the present from you. Because the present is where you are living. The present is where I am with you. The present is where grace is being given. But if your mind is always racing toward the worst day, you will miss the place where I am standing with you right now. And this is a truth you need to hold tightly. Not every silence is a sign of loss. Someone speaking less does not always mean they are pulling away. Something slowing down does not always mean it is breaking apart. A strange feeling does not always mean disaster. Anxious thoughts inside you are not always a prediction of what will happen. Just because fear is speaking loudly does not mean it is speaking truthfully. My child, think for a moment. How many times has your mind said, "This is going to be terrible," and then it was not as terrible as you imagined? How many times have you feared something for a long time, only to discover that when it finally happened, you were still able to make it through? How many times have you thought you would never be able to bear it, and yet I still carried you through? I do not say this to minimize the times you truly suffered. I say it to remind you that your mind is not always a reliable prophet. And I have still been there, both in the times what you feared never happened, and in the times what you feared did happen. Here is what I want you to begin learning. When your mind goes to the worst, do not follow it immediately. Pause. Ask your heart, is this truth or is this fear? Is there real evidence or am I magnifying something? Am I looking at what is happening now or am I dragging old wounds into the present? That question matters deeply because many times what you are reacting to is not only the present situation. It is all the old pain inside you speaking at once. For example, someone texts you more briefly than usual. The truth may simply be that they are tired, but your mind says, they are tired of me. Something slows down a little. The truth may simply be that there is a temporary delay, but your mind says, everything is about to fall apart. You feel a small ache in your body. The truth may simply be that your body needs rest, but your mind says, something serious must be wrong. Someone grows quieter than usual. The truth may simply be that they are carrying something of their own, but your mind says, I am about to be left behind. Do you see? Your mind always runs straight to the most painful conclusion. And if you do not stop long enough to notice that, you will let fear rewrite reality itself. I know there are people hearing these words who have done this so long it has become automatic. Their mind runs before they even realize it. Their chest tightens before they have named anything. Their body tenses before they have even examined what is happening. But my beloved, automatic does not mean permanent. A pattern of thinking that has become a habit can still be healed. A pathway in your mind can still be changed. That will not happen overnight, but it can absolutely begin tonight. How does it begin? It begins when you stop believing everything your mind says the moment it says it. You do not have to argue violently with yourself. You only have to stop treating those thoughts as the final authority. When your mind says, everything is about to go wrong, you can answer, not every thought I have is the truth. When your mind says, this time I will lose it, you can answer, I do not know everything yet. When your mind says, I will never survive this, you can answer, I am not there yet, and if I get there, I will not get there alone. This is how you begin reclaiming your inner life. And more importantly than anything else, when your mind goes toward the worst, bring your eyes back to me. Because fear always makes you stare at the worst possible outcome. I want you to look at the one who will still be with you if that outcome ever becomes real. That is a profound difference. Fear says, if that happens, you will break. I say, if that happens, I will still be there. Fear says, if you lose this, you will have nothing left. I say, if you lose that, you will still not lose me. Fear says, if they leave, you will never stand again. I say, if they leave, I will still lift you up. Do you see? What heals you is not always knowing what will happen. It is knowing who will be there with you if it happens. My child, perhaps the reason you always imagine the worst is because somewhere deep inside, you no longer feel safe. And a heart that does not feel safe will always scan for danger. It will keep checking, watching, thinking ahead, just in case. That is why I do not only want to tell you, stop thinking. I want to do something deeper. I want to restore to your soul the feeling of being held, of being in my hands, of being inside a presence that does not change. Because only when you begin to feel held again will your heart slowly stop standing guard all the time. I want you to remember this sentence. A mind that always imagines the worst is a tired mind, not a broken one. Do not hate yourself for this. Do not call yourself weak, difficult, or too much. I do not see you that way. I look at you and see someone who has been on guard for too long. Someone who has been trying to protect themselves for too long. Someone who has been carrying more anxiety than they were ever meant to carry. And because of that, what you need most is not to be pushed harder into strength. What you need is rest, gentleness with yourself, a new way of trusting that not every silence leads to disaster. Perhaps tonight you cannot change all your thought patterns at once. That is all right. I am not demanding instant healing from you. I only want you to begin by believing the worst a little less completely. Begin leaving a small opening in your heart for the possibility that reality may be kinder than fear is telling you. Begin saying to yourself, maybe it is not what I think. Maybe it is not as bad as this. Maybe I am afraid, but not seeing clearly. Those small sentences matter because they open a narrow door through which peace can begin to enter. I also want you to learn another lesson. Preparing for the worst is not the only way to live wisely. There is another kind of wisdom, deeper than that. Do what is yours to do, and then place what you cannot control into my hands. Prepare the part that belongs to you, but do not carry the part that belongs only to me. You may go to the doctor when needed, make a plan when needed, ask questions when needed, work faithfully when needed, speak honestly when needed. That is responsibility. But after all of that, you still have to learn how to release the outcome. Because there are people who do very little and worry very much. And there are people who do their part fully and still know how to rest. I want you to become the second kind. My child, do not let your mind turn life into a room full of the ghosts of what if? What if I fail? What if they leave? What if I get sick? What if I am abandoned? What if everything gets worse? What if no one helps me? Those what ifs are not always prophecy. Many times they are only fear trying to make itself look like wisdom. But you were not created to live your whole life beside unformed shadows. You were created to live in truth. And the truth tonight is this: you are still here. This room is still here. Your breath is still here. I am still here. That is enough for you to begin returning to the present. I know there will be times when you slip back into old patterns. You will think too far ahead again. You will imagine something terrible again. Your chest will tighten again because of some small sign. When that happens, do not despair. Do not assume all your progress has been wasted. Healing is not never repeating an old pattern. Healing is recognizing it sooner, responding more gently, and returning more quickly. You do not need to be perfect in order to be growing. You only need not to give up on yourself. You only need to keep returning to me. So now, if your mind is racing toward the worst again, I want you to do just one thing. Stop. Take one deep breath. Name the fear. Then say to me, I am afraid of this. That is enough. No polished words, no perfect prayer, no need to appear strong, just honesty. And then let me speak to your heart what fear never can. You are not alone. You are not abandoned. You do not have to walk through everything by yourself. And you do not need to start living tomorrow's pain tonight. My beloved, I do not promise you that life will never hold hard days. But I do promise you that your mind does not have to become the place that makes you suffer through hundreds of hard days before one real hard day even arrives. I do not promise I will remove every surprise, but I do promise that nothing that happens will ever happen outside my presence. I do not promise people will never change, but I do promise that I do not change. I do not promise that fear will never rise in you again. But I do promise that you do not have to tremble alone when it does. And this is the final thing I want to place into your heart before you sleep. Just because your mind always imagines the worst does not mean the worst will become your real story. Do not give fear the right to write your future. Do not let the darkest scenario sit on the throne inside your mind. Let me sit there instead. Let my presence become greater than what you imagine. You do not have to prepare for the worst in order to be safe. You only need to remain in my hands. Let your heart slowly learn that even before it knows the future, it can still rest. Go to sleep now, my beloved, and if your eyes do not close right away, then simply lie there with me. Do not try to outrun fear. Just stay here, breathe here, rest here, and let me stay here with you. Little by little, your mind will learn again that not every silence is dangerous. Not every change means loss. Not every what if is real. And you do not always have to prepare for the worst in order to be safe. Tonight, you are allowed to rest. Not because life no longer contains hard things, but because I am still holding you. And sometimes, that alone is already enough to make the fear inside your mind begin to lose some of its power.